In my homily last week, I was suggesting that our spiritual growth, in many ways, is a constant relinquishing of what we thought we knew about ourselves, about God, moving forward into unknown territory, things we haven't become used to or haven't thought. And I would submit that the kingship of Christ, and therefore true kingship, is something that will equally challenge us and challenge our presuppositions, our biases, and our expectations. And Jesus suggests as much in his conversation with Pilate. He says, "My kingdom is not of this world." In other words, it's not your usual type of kingdom. My kingdom is not from here. And Jesus is so afraid in his life, of people getting the wrong idea, that he won't even admit, really, to being a king. Doesn't want the news spread around. Even here, in the gospel today, he says, my kingdom is not from here. So you are a king? And Jesus says, you say I'm a king. In other words, I'm not going to say I'm a king in the way you're expecting king to be, or to be understood, so I'm not going to even use the word, but I'm going to bear witness to the truth of kingship. And Jesus did this, of course, in his life, by his teaching and by the way he behaved. Remember how he always used to tell people, don't tell anybody I'm the Messiah, when they confessed him as the Messiah. He said, don't tell anybody. Because they get the wrong idea. They think he's going to reestablish Israel and be a king on a throne. I remember in John 6, after he gave the Eucharistic discourse, he fled into the mountains because they were afraid. He was afraid they were going to come and make him king in their own way, and he wouldn't have any of that. When they proclaimed the king coming into Jerusalem that final week, he was riding on a donkey, not in a big carriage or a chariot or something. Again, to make the point, not a king in the way humans think or expect. And in his teaching, of course, he made it clear to his apostles, of course, who didn't understand, didn't get it. No. It's not like the Gentiles who lord it over them, the kings of this world who make their power felt. No. The one who's going to be greatest among you must be the least. The one who's going to be the first must be your slave. Just like me, the Son of Man, who came not to be served, but to serve, to give his life. Wow. That isn't contrary to human expectation and human practice. I don't know what is. So he came to bear witness to that truth. Whoever is of the truth hears his voice. Well, how have we heard his voice? Not too well. Even in churches and religions, kingship is exercised not quite that way. So he's a priest, prophet, king. He bear witness to the truth. This is prophetic role, and you don't see here any churches throughout the world named after Christ the prophet, do you? Because what Christ says makes us uncomfortable. We're much better with Christ the King, and we think we know what that means, but what I keep saying is we don't know what that means. So Jesus bears witness to a different type of kingship. Look at the way he treats people. Does he make his power felt, lording it over people as he says the Gentiles do? No, not at all. He takes, if you notice in the Gospels, he takes everybody just exactly where they are, responds to their needs as they see them. Lord, that I may see, Lord, etc. Feeding the 5,000. He takes people where they are and nudges them as best as they can understand, usually a bit beyond what they can understand, but still nudging them to go further, to go deeper in their understanding of themselves and of God. And he doesn't impose, he doesn't judge. He's not come to judge but to save. And how does he save? How does he exercise his kingship? By healing, by nourishing, by liberating, by helping people to expand and grow and find freedom and joy. That's how Jesus behaved in this world. And that is what his kingship consists of. That is how he is king. By being someone who can heal, who can liberate, who can help people expand and grow and become who they truly are called to be. Christ the King. And that's what he says, so it shall not be so among you, but you shall, etc. You shall, the first will be like. So you must be likewise at the service of all. Your kingship, in whatever it consists, must be like mine. And the second reading reminds us that Jesus, that we have been made a kingdom of priests, priest, prophet, and king, in the image of Christ, so our kingship must be like his. So we're called to serve, to take people right where they are, especially if we have any kind of authority over them. Take them where they are, see what their needs are, not to be served, but to serve, to see what their needs are. How can they grow? How can they be healed? How can they be liberated? How can they expand? To be at the service of that is true kingship, true leadership. That's what we're called to. Whereas, if you look around, the human tendency is quite different, isn't it? Whether you're talking about Shakespeare or the Game of Thrones, or look around the world today, people want to be king so that they can have power, so they can do what they want, impose their will, and be famous, and be remembered by history. Really? Not to be served, but to serve. How many people want power in order to serve? Not lord it over them as the Gentiles do, as Jesus said. So we haven't gotten the message. We haven't listened to the truth. And how many people even in religion, in history, in the church, want power so they can do what they want and exercise their own will and live an easy life and be remembered? Career climbing, boardrooms, presidential palaces, power of any kind. For what is it used? Self-aggrandizement or for service? Families. If you have power in your families, is it to help people grow and expand and be healed and find their true selves? Are you at the service of that growth process? Or you just want to impose your will on your kids? I'm the boss. Really? So we're all kings and queens in some kind of way. We have to know what that means and be able to be at the service of others. Because Jesus hasn't changed, lest we get this wrong. It's not that he behaved that way during his earthly life because he's supposed to be humble, putting on the show. But when now he's Christ the King and he can do what he wants. Well, no. He hasn't changed. God hasn't changed. God himself is still at the service of all of us from the very beginning of our lives, from the very beginning of the universe. How can we be healed and grow and expand and become all we're called to be, right? Isn't that how Christ exercises his kingship in our lives and in our world? You don't see him imposing his will anywhere, do you? Do you? Where? No. He's working quietly, delicately at the depths of everyone's heart and soul to help them expand, grow, become all they can be, so that we can behave the same way to each other, especially in whatever way we exercise authority in our lives. That's the truth to which he came to bear witness, to which he bears witness even now. You know what the next line of the gospel is? Pilate answers Jesus, "Truth? What is truth?" And whether that comes from cynicism or world weariness, or whether the same question arises in our hearts from cynicism and world weariness, the answer is nonetheless there. The truth is Jesus Christ, the way, the truth, and the life. And he bears witness to that truth in our hearts as well. Being at the service of all. Being self-effacing so that others may grow and expand and find their true freedom and their true identity. That's what it means to be king. That's what it means to be human. That's what it means to be Christ. And that's who Christ is, King of the universe and of our hearts, both now and forever.